Lilias, I first became aware of you probably, well, let's see, Gracie's 31 years old, so it was probably in 1972. I had been living on the Oregon coast in a cabin we had built by hand with no electricity. I'd been practicing yoga from the trees and the wind and the mountain. And my mother, who had been practicing yoga for many years, as had my grandmother, mother said, if you're going to do this, you have to have a teacher, a proper teacher. I said, "Yeah, but Mommy, there's nobody here who even knows what this is. There's nobody here for a teacher." She said, well, you have to study with Lilias. Lilias will be your teacher. I said, but Mommy, we don't have electricity, we don't have a television, we don't have a way for me to meet Lilias on television. So about a month went by, and here came a big box in the mail. It was a battery-packed television, especially so that I could watch Lilias on television and learn how to do yoga. And of course, not only did we not have electricity, but we didn't have any reception. There was no possibility of that working. We did have a very fascinating little machine that made black and white dots that was really interesting, but no programs. So about after that, we met. The first time I actually met your human being was at a very big turning point in my life after my husband had died very suddenly. And my local community, the doctors in my community, there was a small hospital there, got together and pooled the money to send me to, what was it called? The International, Practical Applications of Yoga, Tai Chi, and Dance at Baylor College. Do you remember that? Baylor Medical School?
They all run together eventually.
It was a long time ago, and it had been organized by Dean Ornish and Sandy McClanahan and Larry Sherwitz and people who were students, not only at the university and the medical school, but also they were all students of Swami Satchidananda. And they decided it was about time that this field got a little practicality in it, and they wanted to educate basically the doctors at Baylor College. So you were one of the speakers, and I was thrilled because there you were now in real life. By that time I had gotten electricity, had hooked up my battery-packed TV, and was able to watch you in black and white with your gorgeous braid and your poise. And one of the guests on your program was Richard Miller, a long time ago.
Yes.
But it was such an inspiration to me to have a human being, woman up there, my poor little kids. They knew it was time for Lilias to come on television. They couldn't bother me, they couldn't talk, so they would participate with me also.
It was just at that hour. It was 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Well, for us, I think it was 9 o'clock in the morning. I'd have to check with my children about that, but which is a very busy time for little children. And my big children were in school already, but so that's the first time I saw you, and I remember walking up to you and just being enfolded. I mean, here was this peculiar stranger from the Oregon forest, sort of thrusting on it. Lilias, I saw you on TV, battery pack. Then I can't remember how it evolved, but over the years we always kept touch. And
Right.
then you came a number of times when I finally moved back to California. You came to my home and you came to my church, and besides the yoga things we've done together, you've been a friend to me like I can never express. And we've talked about so many important things. And one of the things that we've talked about is your calling and how you got into this whole experience. And could you share that again with me, please?
Well, you know, it's interesting to call it a calling. My husband says I have a muse and I couldn't have done anything else except that. I began my yoga practice in Stamford, Connecticut. And I was so wonderful because at that time, all of India was coming to New York City. And I was a young housewife with 2 kids and a wonderful husband. And I was going into New York and studying, and then soon, much too soon, I was asked to teach yoga at the local YWCA. Well, there wasn't because the teacher left. And I met some real authentic yogis that were part of the Shivananda Divine Life Society, and was studying with them. And I said to Hans Frankel, how can I possibly teach? And he said, Lilias, in the kingdom of the blind, the one-eyed is king. Okay, so I started my first class, and the journey began. But the journey also, my husband told me within a year that I was going to move to Cincinnati, Ohio. Well, at the time, my husband says that you can see my heel marks from New York City to Cincinnati. I really didn't want to go. So I didn't go for a while. I went, our house didn't sell. So what does a good yogi do but go to a psychic to find out when the house is going to sell? So I went with my best buddy, a wonderful psychic in New York named Beulah Brown, a great sort of bosomy lady, just wonderful. And she had you write down notes on a piece of paper, put them in a wicker basket and write your question. So my friend did and I put down, when am I going to sell my house? And so she went through everybody's question. Beulah did, she'd take it out, she'd put it to her forehead, and she'd tell the people their answer. So she took this out and she said, and who wants to know when her house will sell? I said, I did. And then she said, well, you will sell your house when the tulips bloom, but stand up a moment. I have a message for you. And my bum went straight up, and I stood there quaking in my boots, and she said, honey, I see cameras and lights around you, and you'd better be ready.
Oh, wow.
I had absolutely no idea about talking to a red light, teaching yoga to people I could not see, that they would be all sizes, shapes, and form, and from all over the world. I had no idea at all. So I went to Cincinnati, and within 2 years, the wife of a producer for CET, our local public broadcasting station, went to her husband and said, I have the perfect woman to do a yoga series for you all. And so I started. And the crew, believe me, the crew thought, what is she going to do? Is she going to levitate? I mean, it was that kind of thing. What is this about? And it was quite just everybody's best efforts. And a very shy extrovert I am. Sat in front of the camera and tried to do a class.
You did it.
And we did 500 yoga series of Lilias, Yoga, and You. And then it went from Lilias, Yoga, and You to Lilias. And finally I got it through my pea brain that maybe I would have 25 times to say to a class what I really, truly wanted to say. And be organized about it. There's a beginning, a middle, and an end. You only have a half an hour to say what you want to say, including a relaxation, and to try and be authentic, and to try to be, come from your heart. And because the jitters and feeling fearful and feeling uncomfortable and your little pink leotard that you can see through, I mean, it wasn't comfortable.
I couldn't see through
it. The guys told me that they could see through it. But the joy really has been in the journey, and so much has happened.